yeah, well, I love it. Genuinely. However, you have to literally sit, screw around on the phone, and move a lip that was not difficult. And I got nobody. And that was planned ahead of time. Like this, they knew it was coming. Yeah. Then I got to grab a vacation. Yeah, but you can't because it's just it's not sustainable. And all the time for that fire, which you know, I mean, we're going right for it. Like it'll get there. But it's just frustrating because the stuff that I would have had fixed here, the stuff that I would have had fixed in June was going to be in year 7. Because I just mean, like, how is that going to get business on the shoulder? Study.
I move that we enter regular session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. I move that we enter executive session for 10 minutes to discuss negotiation information pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations under the Kansas Open Meetings Act, and that we return to open session in this room at 7:01 p.m. Attorney Tammy Simoji, Superintendent Dr. Allison Harder, Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations Pam Stranathan, and Director of Human Resources Jared Griffin are invited to join the board for this session. No action is anticipated.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please raise your hand.
Motion passes 7-0.
I move that we return to regular session.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item 4E, executive session for acquisition of property.
I move to enter an executive session for 20 minutes to discuss potential property acquisition pursuant to the exception for preliminary discussion of the acquisition of real property under the Kansas Open Meetings Act, and we return to this room at 7:22 p.m. Superintendent Dr. Allison Harder is invited to join.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0. I motion to return to regular session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. And 83 minutes in, we are now at item 5, the consent agenda. The items listed on the consent agenda are considered by the Board of Education to be routine business items. Approval of the items may be made by a single motion, second, and majority vote with no separate discussion of any item listed. Should a member of the board desire to discuss any item at his or her request, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. What are the wishes of the board?
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. And I know that we always like to highlight the donations from the community that are given to our schools, but I think that these donations this week are really special because our Emporia Middle School students and the Emporia High School class of 2024 both donated substantial amounts to the Spartan Stop. So we'd like to thank them for their support. Next item is item 7A, construction update from Macau Gordon.
Hey, Mr. Eric Wolsey is here for a monthly update on Waymo and White.
You're fine. I won't hold it against you. Good evening. So really, there's a lot happening on the last school building that we're touching. Casey, if you want to go, just a quick update on schedule. Everything's still tracking good. This project will go into summer of next year, and there's been some additions with some additional roofs and another rooftop unit for HVAC that is on order. So that lead time will extend towards the end of the year, first part of next. So when that comes in, we'll coordinate a time to also get that one installed. But really, photos up here are they're a little bit out of date from when I pulled this together to where we're at now. So I'll just kind of walk you through the pictures, and then I've got a bunch of notes that I jotted down too while walking the site. So upper left-hand corner is actually where the new parking is going to go along the northwest side of the school. There, the middle is just kind of a picture. We're adding some new HVAC units in the corridors. If you recall, there's really no air conditioning, heating out in those corridors. It was mainly in the classroom. So adding some conditioning out there. The right uppermost picture is of just a picture down the hallway of the new administration renovation that we're currently in the works. And then those bottom two pictures are of the new high wind shelter. So that's the new addition there to the east. Along with that, so in the admin area, casework install is ongoing, should finish up this week. As soon as that's done, we will start the epoxy flooring in the nurses area. Once the epoxy is done, we will jump in to do ceiling grid. Once ceiling grid's done, we'll jump down, finish the rest of the flooring, and then we'll get an overhead inspection. That'll allow us to finish dropping ceiling tile and then start really putting a bow on that admin area, pushing to really hard to hopefully get that turned over before school starts here in August. Along that, we're also in the library/media center and then both kindergarten rooms as well. So finishing up drywall in those 3 areas this week. As soon as all that drywall is installed next week, we will begin the actual mud and tape of that, finishing out, followed by prime and first coat in there over the next couple of weeks. As soon as we're done with prime and first coat, probably in I'm going to say 2 to 3 weeks, we'll start ceiling gear installation. That'll cut us loose to do all the overhead trim out. And then same with the admins. Once we get the overhead trim out done, we'll have an overhead ceiling inspection by the city. And then that'll allow us to drop tile. And those 3 areas will come together really before school starts. And then in the Northwest classrooms, so if you can visualize it, the 2 Northwest classrooms actually shared one rooftop unit for HVAC. So one room, I think the conditioning was pretty good because that's where the thermostat was. The other room, not so much. So we're actually installing a brand new rooftop unit in the northwest most classroom, as well as the second to northwest most classroom actually gets a new unit too. So those 2 classrooms will now be on their own separate systems. So they'll be able to condition both those spaces independently. And really over the next couple of weeks, the ceiling install will go back in those rooms, and then that'll be buttoned up as well when school starts. So this round for this summer, we are replacing 9 rooftop units. So all those were set this week. So over the next couple of weeks, they will work on all the connections for all the ductwork, electrical, gas piping. So all of that will begin taking place. And then really the hope is by about mid-July, we'll be able to fire those on and put everything back to permanent conditioning. Right now, we've got a couple of temporary units that we're using throughout the school just to kind of keep temperatures in check. And then the Northwest parking lot, really, I would say by the end of this week, but more than likely it'll probably be next week, they'll do that placement of concrete. So that parking should be up and ready to be used for the school year as well. And then lastly, at the new addition, so what you see there in those 2 bottom pictures, actually the structural steel will start next week. And then once that's done, all the framing will commence on the lower level. So structural steel, since that's high wind shelters, we'll get all the steel done, and then we'll begin prepping for the slab on deck so that we'll complete that high wind shelter. So a lot going on this summer. I don't know if you've driven by, there's a lot of bodies in and out, and a lot of things happening. So I know that was a lot of information in a short amount of time. Any questions that you all have?
I know this is an extended project. But do you have any recall of like percentage wise what would be done of the total project by the time school starts this summer?
Yeah, it will probably be close to 50% with the amount of work that will get put in place in about another month and a half, just with everything that we've taken. The plan initially, we had a good plan, but then working with Mr. Kirk and our on-site superintendent wanted to bite off a little more so that we could minimize disruptions during school year. So there's not a picture up here of it, but there was a little lounge area that had a sunken floor by about 6 inches. So think back to the middle school cafeteria that we brought up. So that area also comes up. So we've also bitten off that area too to minimize that disruption. So we're not running materials in and out during school. So we've tried to take on a lot more this summer and leave a little bit less for next summer. But we will include the new roof replacements and that last RTU that we're going to add. So does that answer your question, Grant? Okay.
Any other questions? Great. Thank you so much, Eric.
You bet. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
The next item is item 7B, the 2024-2025 Student Handbooks, second reading.
Okay. Mr. Jared Giffen is here, and principals are here to answer questions as well for the second reading of the handbooks.
Well, good evening again. I believe the last time we left off, there were a couple of items that you asked that we take a look at again. One of those was just adding a statement into the middle school handbook about the expectation of students leaving their phones in their lockers, unless, of course, approved by administrators. And we've added that statement in. The second piece was on observations of students. At that time, we had several guidelines, and we were going to try to put guidelines in. But as we talked with KASB a little bit more and their legal team, they really suggested that student observations be very limited and really only be allowed in the case of an individual education plan for a student with special needs or an independent educational evaluation. In those instances, they suggested that the students being observed have that observation done in an individual setting, to where it's not in a classroom where we don't have to worry about confidential types of information and things going on. So we've addressed that language in each of the handbooks to mirror kind of what they were suggesting, just in the cases of IEPs, IEEs, and that they would be done individually. If there are other questions, Mr. Fisher, Mr. Martin, and Mr. Kirk are here. We'd be glad to entertain those this evening.
Thank you. And I really do appreciate you all going back and looking at that observation section.
Glad we did.
I'm glad you did too. Thank you. Okay, but this is an action item.
I move to approve the 2024-2025 student handbooks as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. The next item is item 7C, renewal of district property, casualty, and workers' compensation insurance for 2024-2025.
Okay, Mrs. Pam Stranathan, Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, will provide an outline of the proposal.
Good evening. So as you noticed on there, we had initial figures coming in just a few months ago that were 100,000. It was going to be at a cost. And so I was very excited to see the numbers that were the final numbers that are being billed to us. So as you can see with the workers' compensation insurance, that it was a decrease of 20,000 from the prior year. And then we only went up 7,000 in reference to property and casualty insurance. So pretty exciting there with the savings that we had made. So, and just asking for approval of those so we can pay them why those numbers are on the paper, right? So, that's right.
Thank you for this. And I think I remember a few years ago, our property and casualty insurance, I remember seeing a significant increase, maybe after like the Andover tornado. So to see this
Yeah,
is really
it was
nice.
Very nice. So,
So I had a question.
Mhm.
I know usually the things that are coordinated by KSB and so forth tend to be more reasonable and so forth. Are most districts our size using that cooperative type thing or some, I mean, what?
yeah,
do you-
and this
what do
is kind of what's happening with the casualty and just the different things. They're getting less and less more involved with school districts. So you're seeing more and more of these co-ops and collaborations and trying to pull more people in just because of, especially when you get into like our property and casualty, some of the big players that used to be in the state have now moved away and even moved away from the Midwest as even being an option for us to look at. So the good thing though is KSB does go out and they do look. They don't just go with the first one, which I'm glad to hear that it's just not the first one that they grab onto. So
you feel comfortable that this is the best bang for the buck,
yeah,
I mean, even though we don't like the figures, but
yeah.
it's what we have to deal with.
Yeah, and especially with workman's comp, that's so dependent on, what happens with your employees. So that one has a little more, I would say, flexibility. But once again, there's just not many people out there. I mean, not many companies now that are taking on school districts like they used to be. So.
Any other questions? This is an action item.
I move to approve workers' compensation insurance through the KASB Workers' Compensation Pool, property and liability insurance through the Kansas Cooperative Insurance for Schools as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Thank you, Pam.
Aye.
And the next item is item 7D, Emporia High School Gymnasium Floor Refinishing.
So I'm staying up here before Corey speaks, but I just want to congratulate Corey for all of his hard work and his team. Next board meeting, he's got some really exciting pictures to share with everybody. He's tried to do a little before and after. I told him that. I said, you need to do a little, get it show before and after. So he's been working on that. But I think you're really going to be excited with the carpet and the painting and all that stuff. It just makes those buildings look so great. So just want to say thank you for your hard work with that. So I'm going to turn it over to Corey.
More out of the book. So we're winding it down though for this summer. The last one that we're wanting to start that we haven't got approval for is the 2 gym floors at the high school. So both the JV gym and the varsity gym floor. We did get some tips, quotes for those. And this is also going to address the JV gym, we had a place that was cut out due to some water issues. This will address those before refinishing. Very badly needed. Talking to Mr. Welch at the high school, there's some question as to if it's even usable for tournaments, if it meets regulations. So this makes sure that we're within compliance for those activities. And then just the aesthetics of it and functionality is going to be a huge improvement. The varsity gym is currently being painted. The painters are still there right now even. And to really set that off, would be nice to have the floor updated. It's not in as bad shape as the JV floor is, but it does have several spots that need repaired. The time to do those repairs is when you want to refinish it, since we're going to have to cut those sections out. So we have a quote for the JV gym for $29,800 and the main gym of $35,300. And the good news is I'd projected both of those higher. The JV gym I had at $35,000, so we saved about almost 15% on the quote versus my projection. And the main gym I had at $51,000, so we saved a little over 30% from where we projected our costs out at. So I feel good about the numbers that we were provided. The company is going to also start in the auditorium doing the stage this week, and then they'll just transition, if this is approved, from the auditorium with done to the 2 gyms and work those side by side. So if you have any questions, I could take those.
Now, I'll just add that, I think we can all remember when Adrian came and John came and talked about the middle school and how now we can host things at the middle school. And I think this will allow us to host more things as well. And that helps Emporia. It drives revenue, brings in visitors, makes people see Emporia as a destination and a good school. And so I'm fully in support of refinishing those floors, especially that weird metal disc thingy in the JV floor. You know what I'm talking about in your picture there? Like, what is that?
Where they cut it out and screwed it back down?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be fixed.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with Leslie. This also is really exciting because I think we've talked a little bit about how we want our students to be involved in athletics and activities, and having really nice facilities is a key part to that. And we've done all this work. We got the new scoreboard and our painting. So I am looking forward to the new floors.
Great. And I echo all of that. And I have absolutely noticed what you and your team are doing. You're really bringing back a lot of building pride. And so I want to thank you for your leadership.
You're welcome.
And this is an action item.
I move to approve the quote from Brady Plus for refinishing the gymnasium floor at Emporia High School as submitted.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Okay, this is back for a second time after more survey results, and Dr. Erica Mickelson, Director of Teaching and Learning, is going to share those.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to start with the slide deck, Casey. So just as a reminder, we had the 4 options previously, and then we had a little bit of mixed results in 2 of them, the top 2, so we brought those 2 back. So the very first option, and I'm going to do just a reminder of what option 1 looks like and then what option 2 looks like. So option 1 very much follows the current calendar. So it's similar to this calendar. It's also similar to next year's calendar, the 24-25 calendar. We have 168 days. The semesters are pretty much, are actually exactly the same, 84 days for each. And then we also have the start and end times to be similar to the current start and end times at this time. First day of school would be August 13th. Last day would be May 19th. And that would continue with the late starts at the secondary buildings. So the middle school and the high school would still have those late starts on that Wednesday to allow for PLCs. And then the elementaries would have the piece where they stay after their the duty day or when the students leave for that PLC time at the elementary level. And that is also at the preschool level as well. When we look at option 2, which is a different calendar, this was option 4 previously. So I know that's a little bit confusing, but option 2 now. We have 165 days, and you can see that first semester is a little bit shorter than second semester. We start on August 20th. The last day would be May 20th. The pre-K day would increase by 9 minutes, and then the elementary day would increase approximately 18 minutes. That is something in previous responses and communication with elementary teachers and preschool teachers that they've requested. So that is a bonus for this calendar. The late start would be eliminated from the secondary. So no more late start at the middle school and high school. And all 5 days of the week for middle and high school would be consistent. We also have time allotted for weekly PLC will be moved to those split days. So again, at the elementary level, they wouldn't have to stay later. It would be a part of that Wednesday or that early release time. And then we're going to look at the responses. So we didn't have as many responses that very first set from either staff or community. We did have more responses this time. We kept it open for 2 weeks, so same time frame. We had 411 community or parent responses, 329 parent responses, and then 82 community members. So we dove deeper into the data and really looked at the differences between those. 364 staff responses. So we had 233 certified staff, 115 classified, and then 16 administrator responses as well. And we showed all of the data. So you can kind of scroll through and you'll see this one is the community input. So you can see that parents and guardians, they as close to 50-50 as you can get, which I know has pros and cons. And then community member input, it's pretty close to that as well. I mean, you're looking a little bit more than 50%, a little less than 50. And then you'll move into the next staff input results. Certified staff, option 2 was a little bit heavier. So we were at 60.2% for option 2, which again is kind of that early release calendar, the one that's not like the one we have now. Classified staff, similar, a little bit more leaning towards option 2. And then you can see pre-K elementary. So we split it up even more and wanted to show the difference between pre-K elementary and secondary input. So again, you're looking heavier on option 2. And then secondary is pretty similar, 50-50. For secondary certified staff, you can see the option 2 is a little bit, just a little over 50%. And then secondary classified, you can see that they're, of course, leaning more towards option 2 as well. When you look at pre-K elementary certified staff, you can see they are more option 2, a little bit, over a little bit 60%. And then for pre-K elementary classified staff, as close to 50-50, I think, as you could get there as well. And then when you look at administrator, director input, we were at around 62.5 for option 2. So the good news, I think, is that we had more input and we really could see the differences between option 1 and option 2 with only those as the options to choose from. I think the hard part now is seeing that 50-50 split. You didn't have one that was more of an increase than another. So we're seeking feedback from you all, and then wanting to know if you have questions or anything that we can help you with.
Great. Thank you. And thank you to all of you for going back and redoing the survey and
yes.
taking our input. I know it
Yes.
was more work, but it also was really helpful.
Yes.
So thank you. And I'll thank you to Lindell, because I know your office manages that.
Yeah.
So.
I have a question about the amount of PLT / PLC. So on option 1, that is the option that where they have late start for
Correct.
secondary. Is that roughly the same amount of PLT or PLC time with the half days?
Yes, correct.
So even though they're doing that every week, and the half days are not?
It's similar. I mean, within it's not a huge discrepancy between either one.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm looking at option 2. And I am a little concerned about the semester breakdown. 79 versus 86, it's 7 days. So that seems pretty significant. So if that were the option we were to go to, how could we make that a little bit more even?
When we were in the schedule and calendar committee group, the group that worked on option 2 was heavy on secondary folks. And so that was one of our questions was, especially for secondary, that seems like it wouldn't be as ideal. And they were saying that it's actually not as big of an issue when you're looking at the time of the year that when you look at the time of the year that the fewer days were. And so, but that is something that we could look at. That's something that we could look at and see if we can take it back to the schedule and calendar committee and see if some of the nuances that maybe we have questions with or that you all have concerns with, we could look at and either try to even out or look at things a little bit differently. I think the pro of this is that it's not next year's calendar. We have a little bit of time. I know historically in Emporia, we try to approve calendars 2 years out. But that is something that we have talked to the schedule and calendar committee about. Are you all okay with hanging in another year on this committee and really working on that?
And thank you. And if the teachers, have talked about the discrepancy in days, then that's what matters to me.
Yes,
So
yes. And that was
so
a big
thank you for-
discussion because even at the elementary level, they said it doesn't quite affect elementary as much as we thought it would affect secondary, but knowing that the secondary group was the one that put this calendar together and they didn't see any issues with it makes it feel better.
I have one other question about the second option. So some feedback that I had heard from other teachers was that the first week of school does not seem to go very smoothly because you've got Jumpstart followed by everyone coming in, followed by a split day. And that maybe could that first week of school be more consistent, and could that split day be moved to the 28th or something like that?
That was exact. So after we had this calendar out and that first round, that was a comment that came to us from the schedule and calendar committee of, after looking at it a little bit deeper, we're not really sure why, and so again, they're seeing that we could make some changes on this and already having some ideas and thoughts. And that was exactly their thought too, was moving that next week. And I taught kindergarten, I mean, for at the early stage of the year, it's really important to get them in and making sure that they have that routine. And so even if it's a week later, I think it would be helpful to at least try to get them in that week, that first week of school.
I think the only other thing I have is I'm the late start, eliminating late start. I know the students are really fond of that. And I don't have anyone in school anymore, but as a parent, I always tried to schedule dentist appointments and chiropractor appointments and haircuts and things like bright and early on Wednesday so that they weren't missing school. So I just feel like if we talk about absenteeism, I don't know how much that would affect it. I don't know how much anyone else was actually doing that, but that's just where my mind went to. Yeah.
But, I mean,
know
I
some of the
get that, but then
discussion- oh, sorry.
also what happens is they have a half a day every month now. So with an early release day, so that could be for that appointment time too. Because I'm like you also, and my son hated it when he had a dentist appointment at 8:00.
And Jamie, that's what I was going to say. During the schedule and calendar committee, we talked about that's some communication that we'd have to do with families of, you might not have a late start, but you have this early release, and it'd be a great idea to try to schedule those. We might have to let doctors and dental offices know that they might have an influx during those times, but that would be a transition that we'd have to make.
I see that we've been given sort of three, potential motions. And I mean, I'm looking at this and the way I see it, it looks like option 2 just is where everyone is sort of leaning. So that's kind of my preference. I'm not ready to like make a motion because it sounds like there's some tweaking that needs to be done, but I almost feel like it could be, to me, Jen, what are you thinking?
Yeah, make a motion accepting number 2 at a later date with some
Yes.
changes that we've mentioned have come in just more recently.
I would agree with that too. I kind of saw the same thing you did, Jamie, with the 79 days for semester 1 and then the 86 days for semester 2. I feel like that could be balanced out for a little bit more evenness. So would our motion then be the third one to try to create something that blends them, or would it be more of a come back with option 2 and some refinery?
I think it's either of those. Yeah. I just have I don't know if this is more of like a comment or a question about the balancing of the semesters. And obviously I can only speak from a secondary perspective, but that is having more days in the second semester doesn't bother me because the kids are gone. It's here's a track meet and a baseball game, and they're missing a lot of school anyway. So I almost kind of like that. But of course I want to defer to what our staff think and what the calendar committee thinks, but that's not something that I am really that's not a priority issue for me, but of course I want to defer to what our teachers are preferring.
I move to have the 2024-2025 schedule / calendar committee create refine option 2.
Wrong year.
Oh, it is the wrong year.
26.
Oh, okay, the third one had 24-25, so I just went.
Oh.
I move to have the 2025-2026 schedule calendar committee refine option 2 based off the comments of the board at the June 12, 2024 meeting for future consideration by the Board of Education at the October 9th board meeting.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Would you like a hand vote, Casey, or for just a moment longer?
We're going to go ahead and do the electronic, but I'm going to tweak it as soon as he gets that to me. So let's go ahead and do the vote, and then I'll edit it.
So we have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
I'm sorry, who was the second? Jen. Motion passes 7-0.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Item 9A, Kansas Avenue School Building, request for proposals for realtor.
Okay. So after the board approved that we could move forward with requesting for proposals, we did receive one. I do want to just remind the board that when we talked about how we were going to advertise that, we did not reach out to individual realtor agencies because we didn't want to leave anybody out by accident. So we put it on social media, just tried to get it out to KVOE, Gazette, as many media outlets as possible. So we have one proposal that is here for your consideration. And then Matt Johnson is here to answer questions if needed.
Great. Thank you. Do we have any questions?
It's okay if I ask him, just tell us about
I feel like we should ask something since we made him wait so long.
Well, anyways, Matt, would you come on up here, sir, and tell us a little bit about your services. And I guess if we picked you, how would you market this property to our benefit?
So this property is unique, just like the last one, and it deserves a lot of attention and deserves to be seen. I did include a preview video with my proposal. I'm not sure if y'all saw that. I do want to thank the staff that was there that day that put up with me and my photographer, and trying to get through that. But that's just a sample, because I hire a professional photographer, videographer. I also do drone footage in certain situations. I use a software for 3D scanning so people can take either a 3D tour of it or they can do a virtual tour through video. And that gets in front of more people. I also have counterparts out of my office in Olathe that I've already discussed at length with that would co-list it up in that multiple listing service. That way it's going to be seen by more than just some of the agents around here.
Thank you. And what would the fee be that you would charge to list our building?
I would charge 6%, and that would be split 2% for the listing agent, 2% for the buyer, and then 2% for my co-listing agent in Olathe.
Yeah, I mean, that all sounds good to me. I also am a dedicated fan to cheap old houses. And I love that you mentioned that because I've followed their Instagram page forever. And I think it's so interesting when they post old school buildings on there.
They do. And
yeah.
I specifically reached out to them to discuss, because there is a fee associated with that. But I wanted to make sure that they do, because I've only seen a handful, but I want to make sure they do not just homes, but commercial properties as well. And that's going to get attention nationwide on their Facebook page, their Instagram page, as well as their newsletter.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move the board to accept the proposal from Diamond Partners, Inc., Keller Williams Realty, and that Diamond Partners, Inc., Keller Williams serve as the real estate broker to represent Emporia Public Schools related to the sale of Kansas Avenue School as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
I have a question.
Sorry.
So is there a time frame on this? If it would not sell, that I'm just asking how that might work.
How long is our contract for with you once we sign it?
Sure. With this particular one, I would recommend a 1-year listing because it is a specific property, along with the comparables that I have attached. Other buildings, they have longer listing agreements as well, just because it comes back to that specific buyer that is looking for a property like this.
Yeah, and I understand that because these type of properties are much more unique than
Correct.
average rental, home owner. $1,000 type thing. So, okay, thank you.
And that's a great question because we need to have that contract outlined in a
Yes.
contract that we'll have board.
And with this, I can move as quickly or as slow as y'all would like. I would just need a 7 to 10 day window for pictures, video, and the 3D scan.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item 9B, board policy updates, first reading.
Okay. We have Mrs. Pam Stranathan, Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, and Mrs. Casey Jones, Board Clerk, to give input.
So Casey and I have been working diligently for several months with the, we had KSB take a look at the board policies, all of them, and put them together and compare and give us feedback as to, if you notice on there, there's dates we've left out, to let us know if any of the language is outdated from what it's changed to. So a lot of the detail that just, it was just time to have the whole entire policy reviewed, which was good feedback. Also, you'll notice that on the recommended action that there are some that are retired, that no longer have been used or will be used in the district. And so those have been also recommended for retirement. So on these right now, the group that's been brought to you, if Casey wants to share a little bit of detail about those, or if you have questions on them, she's done a great job of highlighting them in green. I know the committee met and we've reviewed those and looked over those too. So to discuss what was not a lot of language change or a big discussion on language on these that are being proposed tonight or for the first reading. Is there any questions or?
One small thing that is not significant, but typically, and maybe this is how KASB promotes it, but typically, you know, when you're referring to the board, it's a capital B, and it's not that way on anything, and that's okay. I'm just, I know, sorry guys, but you know, that's what I look for. And so I don't know. If KASB doesn't capitalize it, then I'm fine with us not. But I just reviewed 4 policies at work today and frequently capitalized bank. So I know that I was thinking of that already tonight.
I go back and forth with that too, because I'm
Yeah.
working on my dissertation right now. And
Yeah.
so it starts to confuse me too. And like the
Right.
superintendent, you know,
Right.
I guess that's a schooling of thinking it should be capitalized if it's
Sometimes,
referencing to,
right? Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So-
anyway, if we're going to do it across the board, all lowercase b, or across the board, all uppercase b, whatever is okay
Okay.
with me.
Perfect.
Anything else?
Lillian, did you have anything to add?
I think the most notable thing we did in consent agenda regarding child nutrition and updating that policy to reflect more of what our practices are around meals for students with low or negative accounts. But we already did that in consent agenda. So
Well, I'm going to make a motion then to retire policies. Here we go. ABE, AC, AEA, AEB, BK, BH, DB, DFG, DH, EBB, and EBE, and approve the updated board policies ABE, AC, AEA, AEB, BK, BH, DB, DFG, DH, EBB, and EBE with changes as submitted.
Second.
I feel like I should add ADC to it.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so
We'll
much.
bring more to you. There's more to come.
The next item is board reports. And as we all know, many of us serve on different commissions and boards in the community. And so this is a great opportunity for us to get updates. So Leslie, we will go to you first. Do you have any updates from the Flint Hills Technical College Board of Trustees?
Yes, we met on Monday. It was a good meeting, a lot to discuss. Pat Wiederhole, our current board chair, that was his last meeting. His 2-year term or 2-term limit was up. So we're currently seeking a new appointee to the board. He was the county rep. So we've got some people in mind, and hopefully we have someone by our July meeting. One big thing that came to the meeting that night was the classified staff salary table. So similar to what we did, I believe it was 2 summers ago, when we got everyone on a schedule and we got everyone to $15 an hour. We just got there for the tech college as well, and so that was really exciting. And they did all that work themselves as far as research, and put so much effort into that and the steps. Also got some exciting updates on our precision ag program that will be hopefully classes will start being offered in fall of 2025. That's a big need in our area. And ratified our master agreement, had a really great IBB session there at the tech college. And I said I would serve as board chair. So I will not serve as board president. And for us, I'm not putting my name in the hat. Just want you all to know that.
Thank you. Next, Jeremy, Employee Recreation Commission.
Yeah, some really great things going on there. I believe the aquatic center is open now. We got plenty of lifeguards, so I don't have to beg you all to send your kids to work there. There were some new hires. Brian Salyer was hired as our sports supervisor, and Logan Bueller was hired as our outdoor maintenance foreman. So welcome to them. We have, I think, passed the deadline for receipt of the at-large applications for the member of the rec commission that the rec commission appoints, and I think there were 3 of them. So we're probably going to set a meeting here soon to interview them and figure out who that's going to be. There were some future outdoor projects that are pretty cool. I think we're going to get 2 T-ball diamonds at Santa Fe Park, some upgrading of the Lorenzo Delgado diamonds at Santa Fe Park, and the youth softball diamonds at Whittier Park. And we are working on getting some, I think, 2 futsal courts installed. And futsal is like a soccer court almost, but it's it has a floor that's artificial, and it's a bit of a heavier ball. So it's not like a regular soccer ball because it's meant for that type of field. And that should be open access to the public. So we're hoping that'll help to alleviate some of the issues we've had with soccer field access in the community as a whole. There was some pretty interesting wind damage. We had a really breezy storm the 19th of May, but that's what insurance is for. And I believe the steering committee is meeting tomorrow to do a whole day worth of interviews for, I think it's the architects and construction at risk manager, right? Yep. So Jamie's going to have a really good time tomorrow. Thank you, Jamie, for your service.
Looking forward to it. Next, item 3, Insurance Committee, and that would be Leslie and Jeremy.
We met sometime. Pam can't remember either. It was a good meeting. Just great. This has just been a really good process throughout. Our rep came and really kind of laid things out on the table. We had our last meeting had been, I think, on Zoom, so it was nice to be in person again, or Google Meet. We decided we would include May in the hopes that that would get us maybe closer to 100% usage, as opposed to, I think, 116% is where we were at the end of April. So if we can get May in there, then we'll start sending out for quotes, and we're really just exploring our options. The team members, the committee members gave really great input as to the kind of plans that they wanted to see and what they were willing to pay for, comfortable with. So it was good. I don't know that we're going to have like a drastic premium reduction, unfortunately. Maybe next year if we can work some things out. But we're moving in the right direction, and everybody feels they have faith in the process. No one feels like the wool's being pulled over our eyes or someone's talking out of both sides of their mouth. Everyone feels good about what we're doing. Yeah.
And I wasn't able to be at that last meeting. I was working in Topeka that day. So thank you, Leslie, for carrying this one.
Great, thank you. Item 10A, DJFAB, administrative leeway for Logan Avenue condenser unit.
Okay, put it in as much information in the agenda item as possible. So the HVAC was not included in the bond project for Logan. So Logan was finished and then it failed right after school was dismissed. So we also want to make sure that we have HVAC for our students when they come back. So it was really important that we start that process, knowing that it takes a while to get those units. And the other part of that is that with a 30-year-old unit, then either the parts have to be made from scratch or it just takes a long time to order, to find and then order. So we needed to enact that. And so if you could approve this, the agenda item, the proposal as submitted, or if you have any questions. I think Corey is still here. Yep, Corey's still here. Corey worked through all those details if you have any. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. And just to confirm the timeline we are on now will ensure that it's installed by the start of school.
As close to the start of school as possible. It wouldn't have been had we waited.
Yes, that's pretty big in
Yes, so it's
August.
pretty, yes, it's pretty close. And it's mainly in the basement with our new connections classroom. That was what was, why don't you come up and say exactly what classrooms are affected?
So to speak to the time frame, we're part of the cost is to expedite the shipping, and that puts it here right at the start of school. But getting this head start on it, they'll start demoing earlier. So as parts come in, we'll be waiting on just that last piece. That'll be right around the school start. So as soon as that hits the ground, we're a couple days from it all being functional. That unit services part of the basement and the other part's upstairs. So the new connections classrooms where we're building those calming rooms, it's those. And then it's also, I think, first or second grade on the upstairs. It's I think it's 10 classrooms that unit services, part of a hallway, and then where the stairs go, which a lot of the pairs use that as little study areas. So it's a lot of square footage, which is why it's such a big unit.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay.
I would move to approve the proposal as submitted for 10A.
A second?
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item 11A, future board calendar dates. We will be here on Friday at 8:30 a.m. for our board retreat. Our next meeting
And
is on
Mrs. Reaver, actually, we need to correct that. We actually start at 8. I mean, the start will be coming in. We'll start at 8:15, 8:30.
we will be
We're
here
going
at
to
8.
adjust that. Yeah.
We are going to start at 8 o'clock. So Friday we'll start at 8 a.m. on June 14th. On Wednesday, June 26th, we have our board meeting here at 6 p.m. and our Wednesday, July 10th board meeting also at 6 p.m. here at Mary Herbert Education Center. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.